Hi friends, it's been a hot minute. Apologies. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Robert Louis Stevenson. When I last mentioned that I had started reading this book and I had the line that I really liked, if he be Mr. Hyde, then I be Mr. Seek. I didn't realize that was only like 13 pages in, so I didn't know the story at all. I thought I did. But then again, it's Jekyll and Hyde. A guy drinks a potion and turns into an evil monster guy. What more to the story can there be? My only previous knowledge of the story was BBC miniseries from forever ago where it's set in modern times and he's like a cannibal or something.
You're missing out. It's like sex, only there's a winner.
Then there's the sequence in The Pagemaster that always scared me as a kid whenever I watched it.
Dr. J?
My name is Mr. Hyde!
And then there is the Frank Wildhorn stage musical that briefly had David Hasselhoff of SpongeBob SquarePants the movie fame as the titular roles. Like you think about like Dracula and Frankenstein, the movies of those are not faithful at all to the books. So I was thinking, oh, this is going to be that same thing but like the stage musical would be a little more faithful to it. Like an example of how this story is vastly different from what the modern zeitgeist understanding of the story is in the very beginning of the book. Our protagonist, Mr. Utterson, first hears of this Mr. Hyde through another friend of his who had been walking down the street, saw Mr. Hyde like running down the street, run into a little girl, push her over, and then keep on running. So the friend, the girl's father, and like a doctor who was there all came up and they're like, dude, what is your problem? You can't just like run little girls over and push them onto the ground. They tell him, we're going to take you to court. You can't just do that. And so Mr. Hyde is like, okay, don't do that. I will give you some hush money so you don't do that. And they're like, well, you just gave us a check. How do we know that this is a good check, that it won't bounce or anything? And he's like, you know what? I will take you to the bank when it opens tomorrow. I will take you to the bank to make sure that it gets deposited properly. And so the friend, Mr. Utterson's friend, the girl's father, the doctor, and Mr. Hyde have a sleepover together. It's totally glossed over. And then at the end of the story, Mr. Utterson turns to his friend and he's like, you know, that was a bad story. I don't want you to ever tell it ever again. And the friend is like, no, yeah, you're right. I won't. Okay, bye. And that's the start of the book. The POV character that we follow throughout the story is Dr. Henry Jekyll's lawyer, Mr. Utterson, who is trying to figure out why in the world his client and his friend, Henry Jekyll, has in his will to leave all of his belongings and possessions and everything to this weird man named Edward Hyde. So he's trying to figure out who is Edward Hyde, what is his connection, and then murder happens. So after the murder, Utterson comes to him saying, we're pretty sure Hyde did it. Do you have any idea where he is? And Jekyll shows him a letter from Hyde saying, all right, I'm jumping town. You'll never see me again. Bye. And Utterson takes the letter as like, okay, yeah, no, that's cool. He takes the letter. He shows it to a friend. And the friend says, okay, that's weird. Because I'm looking at this and I know Jekyll's handwriting and they are like the exact same, but like the slant of the letters are slightly different, but like it's the exact same. So that's weird. And Utterson is like, huh, yeah, that is weird. Anyway, so Jekyll's butler, Poole, his name is Poole, comes to Utterson saying, hey, Dr. Jekyll is acting really weird. He's like rifling through all of the boxes in the house, like he's looking for something and we have no idea. He's like scaring me and the rest of the staff. Can you come over to like try to talk some sense into him? And Poole tells him it looks like Jekyll, but it also kind of looks like that Hyde guy that everyone was so scared about before. And Utterson is like, yeah, that's pretty suspicious. I guess I'll come over, take a peek. So Poole and Utterson storm into the laboratory where Hyde had been searching, and they find him dead on the floor. Hyde is dead on the floor. He just drank something like seconds before they came in, and he's just there, and they're like, ooh, damn, sucks. Anyway, so Poole gives Utterson this like pack of letters and stuff. He's like, Mr. Jekyll wanted this to go to you. So Utterson reads it, and he finds out that Hyde and Jekyll are actually the same person. What? Yeah, I'm as surprised as you are. I mean, who could have seen that coming? Not me, that's for sure. But yeah, Utterson is reading this thing, and it's Jekyll's like final testament of like why he did what he did, like why he made this potion and why Hyde exists in the first place. It's basically just the duality of man. Like there are both good and evil parts within every person. He said, if it's possible, we should find a way to separate the two beings in order to create a like utopia society and like banish all the evil people from the world. All right, opinions. So part of the reason why I haven't been doing these videos a lot is because Darius convinced me to read the Dresden Files series. So to go from very modern lingo, very consumable read, to a book written over 100 years ago where the dialogue and the prose is very elaborate. Like you got dashes, you got semicolons. It's a whole other thing. But I really liked the majority of the story. Like it's a mystery, so it's very fun. It was weird because you know the ending. Just our modern culture, you know the story, you know that they are in fact the same person. But like you're enjoying the ride, you know? But in a way, it kind of feels like the author, Robert Louis Stevenson, came up with this really interesting concept for a story and then couldn't think of a good ending. So he just gave us his writer's Bible in the form of Jekyll's final testament. The final, like, 20 some odd pages of the entire book. So a whole quarter of the book is Jekyll's final testament. And it's just given to you. We don't ever get Utterson's reaction to any of this. Like, he gets the papers from Poole, he goes to his house, and he's like, and I sit down and I start reading. And then you finish the testament, and it's like, now what? It's an unfortunate ending, I feel, in my opinion. And while Jekyll writes at the end of the book in his, like, testament thing, and, like, towards the end of the actual testament, he's like, oh, I'm so scared of Hyde. I'm so worried about what's going to happen to me if he, like, takes full control. He's so scary, blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't believe him, because at the beginning, when he was first talking about how excited he was with this experiment, when he first turns into Hyde, he's like, this is awesome. I have so much energy. I feel so much younger. I'm able to step outside of myself for a while. I don't have to be this upstanding citizen for a couple of hours. I can do what I want. And honestly, that feels more like a commentary about the constraints that society puts on us, especially Victorian upper class society, which he was part of, and like it's written in that period. It says more about the expectations and constraints that society puts on us rather than about the inherent evil versus good duality of man, you know? Anyway, I get how this is an important book that has been read and talked about for over 100 years. How dare English teachers be right and say that books are good and important? The absolute audacity. Anyway, next book. It says there's going to be a watermark. I don't really care. So here are all of my books. Random number between 2 and 280. I'm so good at typing. All right, give it to me, Google. What do we got? 38. Castle in the Air. Yeah, it's the sequel to Howl's Moving Castle, which I haven't read, so I'll read Howl's Moving Castle instead. All right, Let's party.